Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. Of course, we are rising in the conversation on Rise and Shine this morning, and we're beaming live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. If you're just joining us, now we're about to go to the other part of the conversation this morning, looking at the budget presentation of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that happened on the floor of plenary yesterday with a joint session of both, the red and green chambers. We're looking at what plans that we have for 2025 as it were with regards to our budgetary allocation. 49.7 trillion naira is the proposed budget for 2025, and we're looking to borrow 13 trillion naira to bolster the deficit in that particular budgetary plan. Of course, we're also going to be looking into the sectors and, the allocations into key sectors of the economy that the president has assigned. And we'll be having that conversation with an ace journalist and public affairs analyst, Victor Onomo, who is joining us via phone this morning. Good morning, Mr. Onomo. Good to have you in Rise and Shine this morning.
Good morning, Spectrum. Good morning, Uyai. Thank you for a lovely day.
Thank you so much. How is the city of Uyo? Several conversations we've had. We are reacting to police activities in the country. We've reacted to the boy, who allegedly stole a chicken 14 years ago and has been languishing in prison waiting to be hung by a 2014 verdict. And we also saw a stampede that happened in Oyo State. Critical situations and critical things happening in Nigeria. What's the state of your mind concerning the country this morning?
Well, the country will continue to move on. Humanity will always have its challenges, but we must move on as the people. All we need is to be united for development. We should have a caring government. Natural things will happen. So when these things happen, how we manage ourselves through can still give us better days. So I have confidence in Nigeria as a Nigerian. I have confidence in our asylum state. I have absolute confidence in humanity. All I need to do is to live the life I want others to live. Be exemplary in our dealings, starting with the political class to those in the grassroots, managers of the events and ideas. So we just have to live for good of honor. So we live our conscience.
We shouldn't leave our conscience alone. All right, let's go to the conversation of the budgetary presentation by the president that happened yesterday. We saw the budget projected at 49.7 trillion naira. And then, of course, we're looking at the budget on defense and security. So we're looking defense, security, and infrastructure in 2025. Now, President Tinubu presented a 2025 budget proposal to a joint session of the National Assembly yesterday. You've seen the numbers. What are your thoughts? And we're looking at, this has been christened the budget of restoration, securing peace, rebuilding prosperity. That's what Mr. President called it. What are your thoughts before we begin to dig into the specifics?
Well, it's a very ambitious budget. And like we always say, what really matters is implementation. The attention given to security can lead to food security as well, considering what we have seen in the north. The only area I am looking at is the area of revenue generation. Like a budget projects about 2 million barrels of oil per day. But what we are not really sure is what will be the OPEC quota. Are we going to meet that production? Will there be vandalization of pipeline? So this is what we all need, that economic cooperation for growth. But in a general view, the budget is very ambitious. Very ambitious. That's why even when we spoke last time, I said, look, we need to resolve the issue of tax. Because if we don't give that tax reform bill, it should be at par with revenue generation. That is why we can have a good projection. Because budget will always be, budget there is a suggestion You understand? It's a put before the people. You may not implement all, but if you can meet 90% of the people's aspirations, that will lead us to economic revival and prosperity. Like I said, I'm very hopeful. It's an ambitious budget. It should be safely implemented. We should be realistic about our revenue. So that's very important. Before, even at home, if you are going to market and you know you are going to use 2 naira and you are sure of 2 naira, all your plan will be around that 2 naira, not making big plans with little money. So let our projection also meet our revenue efforts. Anyway, like I said, it's a very ambitious budget, and I'm hopeful. Because as it stands now, the present government, the president cannot afford to fail. Nigerians are watching. We have been pushed to a point. We are very patient nation. We have been pushed to a point where even others who are rioting on the street haven't been pushed to. So we have cooperated with the government, and government should get a team of people who are selfless and patriotic. Then have a realistic economic policy. I can bet you can become one of the best nations in the world.
Well, these are, really, hopeful stands that you're taking. The renewal of your hope is strong also in the midst of the Tinubu-led administration. But we are seeing that just looking at certain highlights of the 2025, budget, as it were, we are looking at defense and security gulping 4.91 trillion naira. 4.91 trillion naira is the allocation, that defense will be gulping in. We want to look at 4.91 trillion naira and look at how, how much successive administrations have invested in defense and security in the last decade and a half, especially on the heel of, the Boko Haram insurgents in Nigeria. Would you say that the defense and security architecture, institution of Nigeria have been able to effectively interpret the allocations that they have gotten in successive administrations? With 4.91 trillion naira, how much of success do you expect that we should record in this sector?
Let me take it from this perspective. If there's one thing that is shrouded in secrecy, is security booth. Let me localize the conversation. A local government, the governor of a state has what is called a security booth, and that money often is not accounted for, and they are not held accountable. Now, so it's about time we make security booth a transparent expenditure. Not the money that the governor or local government chairman can keep and use at will. Now, coming back to that, Nigeria, we need that much in the budget for security because, as you have seen now, the security architecture is undergoing some restructuring. A few weeks ago, we saw there was a submission for state police, which I believe, if the government, the 36th government, agreed on state police, that is going to be another restructuring in the architecture, of our security. So we expect that much. I wouldn't say the Nigerian Army has failed. Nigerian Army has basically fought insurgency, and to me, it's been a huge success. You are fighting guerrillas. You are fighting people you are fighting an unconventional war against people like you have the Boko Haram, the issue of banditry. So localization of that security, having vigilante, well-maintained, having state police, will diffuse some of the tensions we are having. Because all these things we are pursuing, if you look at the areas where we get our food from, the north, basically the middle belt, they have enjoyed so much insecurity. So enough needs to be injected into the security architecture, and like you rightly said, it should be transparent. Issue of security should not be shrouded in secrecy. The only thing that can be in secrecy is operational procedure and a strategy. But in terms of money injected into security, it should be known now. It should be known. Please. So these are the things we need to work on. The security is not only on the presidency. Even the village head, it needs to be carried along. The issue of security.
Yeah.
The local government chairman, the elected people, the councillors, have to be part of the security team for sake of information. So, because it will be cardinal thing in security is gathering information, intelligence gathering. So all these people, everyone, all of us, the citizens, must be involved in intelligence gathering while we also back the security. Then the police at this point should begin to work toward restoring dignity to itself. You know, it can be very embarrassing if the police is on that place and the policeman is on the street tormenting the common man. You hear that bail is free. If the police will now use bail to generate revenue to government, let us know that when we are people are bailed for police station in cause of generating revenue. You don't need to say bail is free and people are still paying for bail. So we need these reforms. And again, we also need attitudinal change among the security agents. But I give it to the Nigerian Army. They may not be 100% perfect, but at least they have shown larger patriotism towards enhancing our security.
All right then. So moving on from defense, hopefully, you know, we can see a lot more of transparency and effective disbursement of the allocation. Because I think what a lot of Nigerians have concerns with is, with all of these allocations, if you want to look at, you know, the successive spending in all of these years, a decade and a half, it's several trillions of naira, you know, invested there. Over this time, do we have up to date and up to standard machinery to actually fight, you know, like you said, the gorillas that we have in the forest in the north? Have we bought the requisite kinds of, you know, artilleries for our defense architecture to use? Have we trained and retrained the soldiers that are having to face this? Or is it every day we bring them out, oh, you are deployed to Sambisa Forest, you're deployed to where? How have we, this budget, how is it interpreted in training, retraining, ammunition purchased, you know, and the rest of that? I think that's a major concern for Nigerians at this point. But let's move.
It just boils down to equipping the army, giving them the security agency the requisite training to cope with modern day reality.
Yeah.
We don't just go and put people on a front without training them. As the tactics of the criminals or the bandits changes, the strategy of the military should also change. And that's why it has to be a very dynamic pursuit. So our military should be dynamic, like the advocate. They should be funded. There should also be insurance. Because if I'm going there to the war front to fight, if I'm a family person, I'll be concerned about what happens to my family.
When I'm gone.
So you don't just give me stick to go and pursue a criminal without protection. Then on another side, there should also be security. The security men should be properly well paid, given proper orientation. Then on the other hand, the people also, the personnel also have to be patriotic. They have to be patriotic. They have to work as a team. It's not that if you are someone, if you're having crisis somewhere, and because the soldier is from a particular area, you begin to leak information to the criminal, that will be used against the infrastructure. So we need that reorientation. We need proper funding. Let security vote not be shrouded in secrecy. That is my take. Whatever we are doing now, army requires to be equipped. Again, while equipping the army, we should also develop a technology. We know everything we need to buy, we import. The Nigerian army has evolved. The security institution has also evolved. So concentration also be on local ammunition manufacturing that suit our environment. Because You need to develop weapons that suit our own environment while we continue in peace advocacy. In security, the churches have a role to play. The mosques have a role to play. Even the traditionalists also have a role to play because it's about death and life. So let us support the president. Let the president and the governors and the leaders be transparent and be decisive. There should be the political will to curb insecurity. Another thing they should also downplay, they also to minimize insecurity, we have to also, in politics, we have to downplay thuggery. We also have to, in our society, our own peculiar insecurity is the issue of cultism. These are things we need to diffuse. These are things we need to work on to get the society properly secured. Now, I still believe that the government should send the right funding for our security, and then protect our personnel, but we must continue to protect this country as well.
All right then. So moving from security, I believe enough words said, and looking at the development, I mean, we also have a new chief of army staff, and this is quote and unquote fresh money committed into his own hands. So let's see how he interprets this when it is eventually signed into law and disbursed, to the commission. But let's look at infrastructure. The president is allocating 4.06 trillion naira for infrastructural development. So under infrastructure, we're talking about institutions of government. We are looking at road infrastructure. We are looking at electricity, infrastructure that provides basic amenities for Nigerians to be comfortable. 4.6 trillion naira is the vote that the president has put down. Now, looking at the trajectory of his time since May 23 as president and some of the infrastructural development that he has leaned towards, what are your expectations with regards to this? And what would you say should actually be the critical area of concentration for infrastructural development under this budget?
I think it should be transportation. It should be transportation. Nigeria should deliberately develop the rail sector, then maintain the road network, open up rural roads for economic growth so that we can freely move goods and services. If you have a good transport infrastructure and you also have good security, you can enhance food production. So electricity, we talked about this last time, the issue of electricity should be addressed and seem to be addressed finally. Then transportation, very important. With concentration on both the sea transportation, let me use Akwa Ibom as an instance. We can afford to have a rail line around Akwa Ibom that connects the three territorial districts. We can go to Iko-Abasi, go to Oron, enhance ferry service, while also ensuring that buses are provided. There should be, once you have free movement of people, also moving commodity from the hinterland to the market, because most of these goods are perishable goods. If you have a good load, moving tomato from Sokoto to Lagos, if the road is bad, and those things could go bad because they are perishable items. These are the things we need.
Okay, so still looking at how basic these things can be looked at. We're talking agriculture, we're talking development of, rail line in Nigeria. I do hope that these are sectors that can also see commensurate disbursement. But under this, infrastructure development, I want to take you on, that after this has been allocated, you're going to talk about the part of the MDAs being able to interpret the allocation sent to them. Now, this is the budgetary budget for the federal government. We are now also going to see ministries, departments, and agencies bring their set budgets under, what the president has requested from the federal government. These are things that will be shared in FAC and the rest. How does, what's the place of the MDAs in all of this? How can they make sure that this 4.06 trillion naira if it gets allocated to the fullness of this sum, we see the dividend of this particular budget, because that's a concern. Like you said, it's a really humongous, budget as it were, but how do we see it affect the common man, especially where infrastructure is concerned?
It's to power ministries and departments that are closer to the people. If you have MDAs within the Ministry of Agriculture that are involved in extension services, that are involved in seed distribution, like recently a ministry was established for cattle. Yes. Now, if you did livestock, what are you doing now? We can now look at our breed of goat. Akpabo has his own breed of goat. We have the red bororo that comes from the north. We develop this thing, the cows, we develop ranches. Then take advantage and develop the milk industry, increase the protein. And we have this, we can stop playing politics with the issue of ranches. Government should provide land for ranches, now, so that we keep our cows and the animals together, rather than the same animal in baby farms that would have given us vegetables. You see, at the end of the day, we keep on losing the crops and also lose the animals. And that is the fight we have had in the middle belt and other parts of the north.
Okay. So moving on from that conversation, 2.48 trillion naira. Before I come to the bane of the most important part for most of us, 2.48 trillion naira is the proposal of this particular budget at 4.7 trillion naira in total. 2.48 is what the federal government is allocating to health. Like you said, if we bring the conversation closer to home, we are looking at having primary healthcare centers established in every local government of the state. Now, PHCs become the basics for healthcare in Nigeria. And we're also looking at several other medical services, manufacturing of, medicine in Nigeria and all of that. 2.48 trillion naira. Is this good number, or it should have been more than this?
I think I should have been more in health. To me, I believe government should pay attention to agriculture, pay serious attention to health and education. If you look at today, drugs, the cost of buying drugs, let me use for instance the common drug use of pain, paracetamol, used to be card 50 naira some time ago. Now it's about 200 or 300 naira, which is about 200% increase. Now, when this happens, what should government do? It means a lot of people are at risk. So government should look into issue of providing drugs, availability of drugs in government health facilities. Not just building, putting up a building, putting up some few staff, no doctors. Our doctors should be well paid. There should be attention to the health. There are too many Nigerians that cannot afford to take care of themselves in terms of health. So government should, health is a social welfare. So government was invest on health. So to me, the allocation on health is still doubtful. Then we also have existing partnership with non-governmental organizations across the globe. So we should utilize every opportunity to increase the budget on health. But it is not a bad thing.
So we should have looked at the increment, looked at an increment in the budget for health. How much is this going to cover? Yesterday, we looked at the fact that, Nigeria is only second to Southern Sudan. And, there's another nation, but skips my mind in terms of, maternal mortality rate. A lot of women die in the process of going to give birth. And just like, Mr. Norma is talking about, sometimes there are primary healthcare facilities, no doctors, no nurses available to get the level of work necessary done. And we're also looking at ambulance structure, as it were, how all of this combats affect us. But this is, serious time. So on this, Mr. Norma, you're saying that the federal government didn't do quite well in its allocation of 2 trillion plus 2.4 trillion for health.
Yes, to me that is not enough. That is not enough. But it's a fair increase in what we previously had. Now, if government, at the point government sat down in Nigeria, collaborated with some foreign NGOs and pursued polio out of Nigeria, it was a good campaign, deliberate attempt to get polio out of Nigeria. And we see that polio in Nigeria has almost reduced to zero. So what our common disease is, we have the same issue with malaria. The common killer of Nigerians is the malaria. Now, how are we concentrating on that health? Now we are having emerging issues of cancer. We must be particular about common health challenges we have, then invest directly into it. Like we have said, we should do everything to keep our doctors back home.
That's a strong
because
conversation.
We have had the highest migration of professionals, doctors and nurses. A friend told me that there is no hospital you go in South Africa, in Saudi Arabia, there is no hospital for Nigerian doctors. So you can now imagine how many Nigerian doctors have migrated to Saudi Arabia for green pasture. So we should give an environment where we keep our health workers beyond having health. Like most Nigerians, like in the rural area, most rural dwellers rely on those operating drug kiosks, what they call the chemists, for treatment. Because there's a deficiency in number of health workers, availability of health workers. So this is a common challenge. Training, having our health personnel right with us, having the right drug, providing the infrastructure. We need this. Without good health, you can't go to farm. So agriculture will be comatose. Without good health, you cannot have soldiers. Defense will collapse. Without good health, you can even have good teachers. Education will collapse. So health is everything. Health and food is humanity in the first place. Before we talk about shelter and clothing. So government should get priority right and try to work and probably run supplementary budget on the health sector to improve what is allocated now. So to me, I still doubt the effectiveness or what I would describe. I still believe it's inadequate. What is provided so far is inadequate. So it's still an improvement.
I hope this does not, this allocation does not expose us to more strike actions from the health sector in the, coming fiscal year. Because just like you have said, is it leaving room for a lot of welfare concerns of the health sector to be addressed? And like you've also alluded to, the Japa syndrome that has hit the welfare, the health sector is as a result of their welfare. Are you able to cover welfare in 2.4 trillion and all the development that is necessary? But let's move to education. Now, we've seen that the global percentage benchmark for education budget is about 15% of whatever a nation's total budget is. Nigeria has continued to be far below that particular benchmark. This administration is pegging its first official budget for education at 3.52 trillion naira. That's what this budget of restoration is about. 3.52 trillion naira. Mr. Onomo, let's look at the development of the education sector under the Tinubu administration. Key thing he has brought to the table is the student loan scheme. In looking at 3.52 trillion naira and the concerns also from the tax reform bill as to what happens to tech fund at the end of the day, which is a key financier of the education sector, especially with tertiary institutions are concerned. What's, are you anticipating? What do you see as the hopes or the casualties of this allocation to the sector?
Well, I've always had this argument. Let me start from the issue of tech fund. Tech fund is not scrapped. The way money was originally generated to fund tech fund is what is in contention now. That if we can continue to fund tech fund, will also increase the capacity of our scholars to go into research. So you should find a way to manage it. Again, infrastructure. Recently, you saw a scandal happening in the secondary school in Akwa State here, where children were fed with some shabby food, which generated a lot of controversy. That should show a clear deficiency in that infrastructure at that level. Are we having the right seat for the students? Have we subsidized textbooks for them? Will the budget take care of that? If we subsidize the textbook for them or provide free textbook for them, like in Akwa Ibom where free education is declared, ordinarily from primary 1 to what we call that, the JS3 are supposed to enjoy that privilege of having free textbooks, having even free uniform, because that is the level where free education is declared. Is the free education actually working? Well, it is working because parents are not paying fees. But are the students getting the right learning material? Is the government providing learning material for the people? What is education without learning material? What is education without convenience? Are we having desks in our schools? Are our teachers adequately catered for? Are the teachers also going to work? Then we also to address one situation. Government employs the most qualified teachers, and we are having the best students from private schools with less qualified teachers. What is the cause of this? These are issues that must be addressed. Like I said, we have not met United Nations or UNICEF benchmark on budget allocation to the education sector. As well as Nigeria, for a very long time, we've not met it. So since we have not met that standard, we can still agree that the allocation is not adequate. But we can also find a way beyond the projection of World Bank, UNICEF, or United Nations. We can sit back and develop a local way of solving our problem. We can go back to our curriculum and know what we teach to the students, how education is funded, how teachers are paid. So these are key things we need to look into. Again, are we also having people who go to teach because they want to teach, or we have people who go to teach because it becomes the last option for them? Now, when you have people who read engineering because they cannot find work in other industries, then get into the education, will the person have the passion to do the work? So we still need to do a lot to develop that sector. So like I said, we have not met the set standard budget allocation to education, but I think the present major policy on education is offering loan to students to ensure that greater number of Nigerians go through the tertiary institution without stress. But beyond that, what is government doing to cushion the effect on the student in terms of accommodation and textbooks? So these are the things you need to look into. Again, is the budget allocation enough to address incessant ASU strike?
Yeah.
In our institutions? These are the things. Is ASU also carried along in maybe during the budget debate, or have they taken a look at the budget, or will they take a look at it after, when they must have made up their mind to go on strike? We need a lot to do. We need a collaborative effort by both government and the players in those industries or sectors.
All right. These are key concerns, but I think you asked the very strongest question, which is this allocation. Is it enough to keep our lecturers within the four walls of our university? But then a key impediment for education in Nigeria is research development. We don't seem to have adequate information to bolster the curriculum that our students are interfacing with. So as the years turn, we are churning out more unprepared, underschooled persons into the job market, which turns around to be a major problem. But My other concern is the minders of the education sector. When you then receive, you know, the allocation that has been given to you, how well do you interpret it? Because I think, you know, an order of preference should come in here, Mr. Onomo. You look at the key sectors within the education sector, which should get more attention with your sub-allocation, and then maybe we can turn things around. What are your thoughts?
The thing is that that's why I say we need that strong collaboration and sincerity and that patriotic jest towards developing this sector. Have you ever wondered why the private residence of the vice chancellor is more beautiful than the admin block of the university? Where are the extra funds coming from? So both the managers of their sectors and government will need to sit down, draft a policy that suits our own education, put the right funding in it, then we can do better. It is not a rocket science.
So let's look at the budget, 2025 budget overview. So the revenue target for the budget that the president presented yesterday stands at 34.82 trillion naira. He's hoping that as a nation we generate 34.82 trillion naira. So we are going to look at our key sectors. Dependence on oil. At the beginning, you talked about will the OPEC quota for Nigeria change in 2025? We have not been able to meet, you know, the OPEC quota in the last couple of years. Now, in 2025, what will it be? Will we even be able to meet or beat our current OPEC quota, knowing fully well that when Nigeria is talking about revenue target, our major concern is on oil. I know in this administration we are talking about diversifying into solid minerals and every other thing, but 34.82 trillion, do you think that that's ambiguous, or what are the modalities the government should consider to achieve or surpass this?
To still keep on securing the oil infrastructure. If they have done well, the engagement of the N13tn to monitor the oil pipelines have actually worked to some extent. That's why you have had a relative increase in oil production. So we need to keep on sustaining the security of the Niger Delta, also providing for the people of Niger Delta who produce this oil, taking care of the community, because once you take care of the community, you have lesser sabotage. You will not be having people maybe often, you will see a criminal element, but you not have people deadly often going to destroy pipelines, because these are some of the things that keep us away from reaching our destiny. What are we doing about refineries? We try to increase the modular refinery, then encourage local production. So these are, we have a whole lot to do. First of all, we need to secure the Niger Delta, our oil infrastructure. Then that will aid us to probably meet the OPEC quota. But we should also anticipate that this market fluctuates. What will be the state of security in the Middle East? How is it going to affect production in that area? Recently, the U.S. has said that they have enough oil that can take them for 100 years without buying from anywhere. Are we also prepared to store, to have a reserve while also sending this product out? Are we diverting the product? So we need to work on bunkering, illegal bunkering and all that.
Okay, so away from the oil sector, how can we generate revenue from other sectors in Nigeria? There's a lot of sectors we can have this conversation about. There's tourism, there is healthcare tourism also. I mean, there's solid minerals, something that we have not explored with the magnitude of natural resources we have.
Agriculture is the magic one. Because if you have agriculture, the one good thing we have done for your country is food security. So when you have food security and you produce raw materials, the next thing that you go into will be manufacturing. So it therefore means that you are able to utilize your agricultural product as a means for feeding and as industry as a raw material to industry. So these are the areas agriculture holds high potential. So let us go to where we have a comparative advantage. Malaysia is depending on the palm oil, and history has it that some of these palm oils were taken from Nigeria, remodified, reset into, and they become a major producer in the world. So we need to go back to agriculture. It's very important. The solution to Nigerian economic revival is agriculture.
Agriculture. Do we really have a lot of people that are investing? And how much is the government going to, invest in agriculture under its infrastructural, budget of 4.06 trillion naira? Agriculture comes under there. So how much will be going to that particular sector? So we're also looking at the capital expenditure for these administration stands at 47.90 trillion naira. That's the total budget package for the Tinubu-led administration. Now, when we look at the Buhari-led administration, it was said at the time that he, brought forward the highest budget ever in the history of the country. But at this time, his successor, who has said he wants to build on the legacy of, former President Muhammadu Buhari, has surpassed the numbers that Buhari worked with, as it were. Is this a concern, or what are the realities causing that our budgetary proposals and allocation is continually going up?
Well, the thing is that we are still having inflation. In the first place, we expect increase in budget projection. And Tinubu's budget, to me, is more realistic than what Buhari had as a budget. Last night, I was trying to compare the budget under Buhari and the two budgets under Tinubu. To me, the Tinubu budget system is more realistic. So we should give him a chance. And as well, the state government, the local government, all hands should be on deck, because economic revival will also need to get to the grassroots.
Okay, so two key things when you're looking at a budget. While we try to wrap up the conversation, two key things when you're looking at a budget is how much of all of this 47.9 trillion naira is going to be used to service debt. And that's a question that Nigerians are really concerned with. We talk about all of this. We already have a deficit on this budget, but we're going to be servicing debt to the tune of 15.81 trillion naira. That's how much in this, budgetary allocation we're going to be using to service debt. And we also have a 13.8 trillion naira, an approximate of 3.89% of the gross GDP of the nation. With the numbers, are we doing good? Are we doing bad? What are we to expect? 15 trillion is a lot of margin.
Yeah, the highest nation in the world will continue to borrow. But where do we put the money? We should borrow for productive venture, so that the money we borrow is even capable of paying itself back if it is put in a useful venture. So the borrowing, we should be careless about it. So when we hear government borrowing, so far I think Tinubu has graciously serviced our debt. If you follow our debt profile, he has been servicing the debt, and that is why you still have that confidence to go out there and ask for more. But all we need now is that we should work on a budget, a realistic budget approach, reduce our borrowing, increase our production, and like I've suggested, pay a lot of attention to agriculture, so we can see it through.
We can see through, hopefully. Projections. Let's talk about the projections on this particular, budget proposal of the federal government. Inflation is currently 34.6% in Nigeria. The federal government met, the Tinubu-led administration met inflation at about 24%, but it has risen to 34% under the last 1 year plus under President Tinubu. But he's looking that in 2025 the inflation rate reduces to 15%. How possible is this? Once again, from the ambiguous budget.
I see in the last 2 months, I've seen some stability in price of items. So I've also seen the inflation, not the inflation now is just galloping. So I believe they will do better. I still believe the inflation rate will come down in 2025. The signs are there. By this time last year, the inflation was over hyper. It was increasing at speed. We saw speedy increment in food items and other things. But at a point, it has been stable. So to me, if they sustain it, then do proper funding of the budget, I think it is achievable. I also foresee a reduction in our inflation rate.
So stability is a factor that we consider. So we're not having the haphazard today. You buy it for 1,000 naira, tomorrow is 1,500. So you think that once we find a stability in inflation, it can pave the way to start experiencing a decline?
Yeah, exactly. It can, once you have that stability, it has a tendency to drop.
Okay.
But what we need at this point is proper funding, adequate funding. You understand? We are not expecting Gary to go back to having 10 cups for 200. Don't expect that. All we need now is adequate funding of the economy so that money will be in the hands of people. Because once you have money in your hand, you can go to the market.
Money in the hands of people is a relative concern. The CBN is talking about the fact that we have too much of the naira in circulation. As of yesterday, they sent out a directive that POS agents will no longer be able to dispense per platform beyond 1.2 million naira per day, and those pegs of 500,000 naira for individual withdrawals per week still stays. So do you think it's a problem of money in the hands?
No, money in the hand is different. Money in the hand is as good as money in the bank. What they are regulating is circulation. So if you have money in your account and you have, all I was talking about going into electronic transaction, the problem is that you don't want me to hold money. But I go to a supermarket to buy something using my card, and the next thing they will tell me there is no service. So how do I buy? So we need to improve on the electronic transaction. We don't really need to be carrying money about, but we deserve to have the money in our account.
Nigerians are concerned. Nigerians are concerned on the VAT, the levies leveled on all of these electronic transfers. I slot in my card for 10 times a day, calculate the lump sum of what I'm spending as VAT. That seems to be a problem for Nigerians also.
If they are charging me, they must create employment for me. To pay tax is a right, it's what citizens should do. But why are you taxing me on my personal income? What are you doing to stabilize the economy so that I can make money for it to tax? Tax is not bad. It's a duty we owe to our country, our state, and our society. But how are this money applied? So if you deduct this money from me, where do you inject this money into? If you are taking 10 naira from the calls I'm making, where are you injecting? Are you putting in the health sector? Or do you just take that money and put it in your pocket and buy limousine for the political class? These are the things we are really worried about. Paying tax is not bad, but what are the tax collected for? Those are the challenges we are having, which calls for proper economic management and tackling of corruption.
Okay, exchange rates. The president is looking that it improves to 1,500 naira per dollar. In the last couple of months, we have been dancing between 1,600 and 1,700. Funny thing, this morning it's at 1,556 naira 13 kobo this morning. It rises and falls, as it pleases. But the president is looking that it pegs at 1,500. I'm not sure that these are numbers and projections that Nigerians can celebrate about. Before the Tinubu-led government came into power, we were exchanging at lower than 1,000 naira, approximately 600, 700 naira at the time. And you saying that your projection for a stabilization of the dollar-naira trade is 1,500. I'm not sure how we should take that.
The pressure on naira from dollar is because we are not being productive. If you are producing, if I produce something in Rio and I'm selling somebody in Aba, what do I need dollar for? It's because we are importing. That's why the pressure is on naira. against the dollar. So if you reduce import, carry out local production, these things wouldn't be there. I will tell you, it's not a rocket science. You cannot be importing and you are not expecting your naira to go weak. You are buying from a foreigner. Are you expecting the foreigner to beat down his currency when he's the one exporting to you? If you want to make dollar, make your economy productive. Export. Because when you export, you earn in dollar. So you have more dollar against dollar instead of having now a weak currency against dollar. How can that work? So I'm not expecting stability in that regard. I think to me, the president is just putting the people on hope. If you are selling things, if you are making money, you will export and get money in dollars now. So there will be no pressure on the dollar in the central bank. So that's where we are. That's the problem.
There was a bill proposal on the floor of plenary this week by Senator N13tn to request that all transactions should capitally be done in naira, because you just made reference to our level of imports. So there are people that still also come to do business in Nigeria. We sell solid minerals here and there, although it's majorly black market, but we also have oil. Senator N13tn is saying all transactions in Nigeria should be done in naira. There are people that are living in Nigeria, working in Nigeria, earning in dollars as opposed to the naira. Do you think that if we get this bill to pass third reading and get it signed into law, that it will affect, it will possibly contribute to the projection of having the dollar to naira parity at 1,500?
Yes, it will take the pressure of naira. How can you be people? There are hotels in Abuja that are charging in dollars in a country where naira is currency. Is that not an embarrassment? So now the dollar, instead of having external competition with naira, is not having internal competition in naira. While we are all part of the same market, it's not. So we should all support the Senate to put a ban on using transacting with dollar within Nigeria.
Wow. I hope that the senators themselves, who are the real spenders of the dollars in Nigeria, will agree for the bill to pass. But the last thing...
Once they make it a law, all of them will abide by it.
Okay.
The politicians are...
But they themselves are the lawmakers.
I don't want to take that trajectory, but I think politicians are some of our major problems.
Yeah, because they themselves are lawmakers. So one last thing. The oil production benchmark, the president is putting 2.06. We currently do not even pass the, I think, 1.6 that OPEC gave to us, but it's projecting that we are able to produce 2.06. Look at the state of the Port Harcourt refinery, as it were. Promise and fail, promise and fail. We're not even sure how well it is currently working. But with this projection, is it possible?
Well, it's possible. That's why I say it's political will and sincerity. It's possible. At least we have been able to establish the fact that they have started production. But I think they should not sell at the same rate like Dangote. Since public funds is injected into the Port Harcourt refinery, it should sell at a more reduced rate so that price of Dangote could be forced down. Otherwise, you are still having monopoly.
Okay, so that would be a major concern then. Wow, this has been such a good exposition, just looking. But I must say you have been really majorly hopeful with regards to this 2025 budget proposal by the president. Now, as a citizen of the country, how would you ask the Nigerians respond to this particular budgetary proposal of the president? How should Nigerians take this?
Well, once again, we should be, maybe probably for the last time, we should be patient.
So patience is key for you. All right, then. Great conversation it has been with Mr. Victor Onomo, who himself is an ace journalist and a public affairs analyst. He's talked about the budget this morning, the expectation and the fall short of that particular budget that was presented by the president. Thank you so much for your time on Rise and Shine this morning.
Thank you very much. I think next week I will find a time to come live.
Great. That's a debt that you owe all of our viewers this morning.
It's a promise made, and it's not a political promise. It's
All
a
right.
sincere and patriotic promise.
All right, then. Thank you so much for your time. Do have a great day.
You're welcome.